Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the weekly report. Why can't we just march out of Afghanistan? Last week, President Biden announced a full U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, the longest war in U.S. history, by the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attack on the United States. While this announcement is to be welcome, the delayed U.S. withdrawal may result in Americans and Afghans dying needlessly for good PR optics back home. We all remember how many Americans died after President Bush's mission accomplished stunt in Iraq. The war has been a disaster from day one, so why wait to end it? The previous Trump administration had negotiated an agreement for the U.S. to be out of Afghanistan by the 1st of May. But in its obsession with tossing out anything associated with Trump, President Biden will continue to keep U.S. troops in harm's way in this pointless war. The Taliban has kept their end of the Doha Agreement, signed under then-President Trump. No Americans have been killed in Afghanistan for more than a year. However, the U.S. side under President Biden will formally violate the agreement by keeping U.S. troops in country after May 1st. The Taliban has announced that it will hold the U.S. liable for remaining in country after the agreed-upon departure date. That means more Americans may be killed. The outcome of the war will not be altered in the slightest by keeping U.S. troops in Afghanistan for additional months. The withdrawal is already announced, and no one paying attention expects the corrupt U.S.-backed Kabul government to survive. It's another Saigon moment, proving that the intellectually bankrupt U.S. foreign policy and military establishment has learned absolutely nothing from history. So if another American is killed, who is going to explain to the grieving family why their loved one had to remain in harm's way for a good 9/11 photo op? A recent article in the Military Times lays out the massive disaster of the U.S. two-decade war on Afghanistan. More than $2 trillion spent, much of it going to fund crooked practices in Afghanistan and here at home. And even worse, the Cost of War Project has estimated that 250,000 people have been killed in the war. We do applaud President Biden's decision to ignore the demands of all the neocons who have flocked to support his administration, but as is most often the case, when it comes to Washington, you have to really read the fine print when something sounds too good to be true. In this case, the fine print is that the U.S. will not actually be leaving Afghanistan at all. As a recent article in the Gray Zone points out, the Afghan war will continue with U.S. Special Forces, CIA paramilitaries, and guns for hire taking the place of U.S. soldiers. The war is not going to end. It's just going to be privatized. My philosophy has always been simple. We just marched in, so why can't we just march out? As we have learned recently, that is exactly what President Trump tried to do in the final days of his presidency, only to get cold feet after his military and national security experts told him it was a terrible idea. When the history of the Trump administration is written, it will sadly be filled with stories of Trump's excellent instincts tossed aside by his inability to demand that those working for him follow his orders. It's tragic. We need to be completely out of Afghanistan yesterday. Thanks for listening.